Hi guys, I'm here today with Tommy and Josie. Tommy is one of the leading fine art and photographic printers in the country, and Josie is a longtime film shooter, analog camera expert,
Thank you.
and one of our Pentax 17 ambassadors. Guys, welcome and thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
So, both of you guys have had a chance to use the new Pentax analog camera, the Pentax 17. How did you guys come across this camera, and what are your thoughts initially?
Well, I kind of heard the rumors about a Pentax camera coming out like last year, and as always, going on the forums, checking out what people are saying, and the idea of a new film camera is super exciting, especially since all the gear I'm using is from the 60s to the 80s, so it's quite dated. Yeah. So then when the Pentax 17 came out and I was invited to be involved in the project, I was like over the moon. But I still had no idea what to expect from it. So it was a surprise for me when I actually got my hands on it that it's so like modern, yet it has that vintage flair to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tommy, you're normally working in the digital space. What attracted you to an analog camera?
When out of school, like pretty much it was all analog. There was no digital cameras whatsoever. I was used to shooting in film, like analog, but obviously grew up into the digital world, had to like transform everything. Like I was printing with the old traditional like chemical-based printers, right? And then we had to transfer everything to that sort of digital spectrum, so scanning the negs and all that. And then that scan would then like be transferred onto paper and come out as beautiful, analog-looking prints, right? For me, when I I heard the rumors of the camera as well coming out, and when I saw it, the look of it, it had that sort of old-school design, but with modern like looking materials, and I just loved it. I had to have it.
Absolutely. It's does have that old school feel. Josie, you've got a long connection with old school cameras.
Yeah,
You were using specifically Ricoh analog cameras. What initially attracted you to the Ricoh brand?
Well, I've been shooting on them for 9 years now. My first camera, I was just looking for like a complete setup for my 21st birthday. And some guy just happened to be selling a Ricoh KR10M with a flash and had film with it, had a camera bag, everything. And it was like $60.
Wow.
And I was like, hell yeah. And I'm someone who's super sentimental. So once I kind of have an attachment to something, I just continue like looking into it more and playing with it more. And then I went on to buy another Ricoh KR10 Super, which is my first camera that I really use for everything. And then from there, it kind of descended into chaos of, I wonder how many different models are out there and what can I get? And then that became picking up like the Singlex TLS, which is fully mechanical. And then eventually this one, which is the flagship Ricoh, and the collection's now at like 22 cameras.
Oh, wow.
So it keeps getting bigger. Even though I say like I'm not going to buy another one, I find another one and I'm like, I have to have it. So.
Yeah, I think you're really one of the top Pentax/Ricoh analog shooters in the country, maybe even in the world.
Yeah, I never see anyone else with a Ricoh, and a lot of people don't know about them, which is surprising. Everyone knows about the Pentax, but they don't know that Ricoh were like sort of consumer cameras. They were the cheaper versions, but they're just as capable. And there's so many out there. Like they're still readily available secondhand, but everyone kind of goes for the big names. So
that's a good tip.
Yeah.
Good tip. And Tommy, you normally are focusing on a side of photography that we all love, which is printing.
Mm-hmm.
The final step in the photography journey is the print. And if you don't get that right, doesn't matter what camera you use, what lens you use. So what is fine art printing?
What I do, it's called G-clip printing, right? Effectively, it's a massive inkjet with quite a few colors and really good algorithms to get the right colors. It's a good thing to have a good printer, but it's also another thing to know how to use it, right? And to have the right color profiles. For myself, I do the different profiles for each paper and according to my printer, right? So every paper is calibrated and accurate and can be comparable to each other paper.
Each paper has a customized profile.
That's right, yeah. Again, having a custom profile, perfect, that's great. So you've got a good printer, you've got a good profile, and then what happens is that you have to look at an image on a color management screen that's been calibrated, right?
Yeah.
And be able to see the colors for what they are and how they're going to come out. And
what product do you use for your color calibration to
What
calibrate the
monitor?
screen? Yeah.
I use an ISO. Pretty much when you see a file on screen, then you just make a judgment on what needs to be adjusted to get the right print. So it could be contrast, could be colors, could be a lot of different things like that. But yeah, you just have to be able to look at it and interpret it, and get the right work out.
And Tommy, before I ask you why Ilford gallery paper, I think there's another step here. Josie, once you've shot the analog images, they're scanned digitally,
Yeah.
and then there's a chance for post-production as well.
Yeah, so, well, I develop all my own films. So as soon as I finish a photo shoot, I'm going home, mixing chemicals, developing the film, and then the scanning process is done digitally with a DSLR full frame and a macro lens. That way it's basically a reproduction of the image. And then you take that into a program that converts it from a negative to a positive. And from there, you can just do what you do with digital images and edit it however you want. I try to keep them as they are, as they come out, but I do have little tweaks here and there that match my aesthetic and my end result. And of course, dust removal has to be done manually. So it's technically retouching, but it's just removing like little tiny little specks of dust that no one else sees but me, but I'm very particular about that. And then you can export it as either a JPEG and upload it on Instagram or wherever, or you export it as a TIFF file and then send it over to a printer. And then that process begins.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the dust thing.
Yeah.
Because I do a lot of art reproduction as well. And every time you just, it's high resolution, obviously.
Yeah.
So as soon as you get in there, you see all
You
the dust.
see it and like little hairs and stuff, and you can't get it perfect.
Yeah, you have an artwork that's like an original A3, and you just start zooming in, and you see just these tiny little flakes, and you know that it would never appear on a print, but because you can see it on screen,
And you know it's there.
You want to like fix it.
Yeah.
From her point, she would give me a file, right? And then, so what sort of screen do you use yourself?
It's like a Dell Ultra Sharp editing screen. It's
Yeah.
not technically calibrated, so
Right.
I hope for the best, and so far it's been pretty accurate.
A lot of people are like that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people use a Mac screen as well, which Mac screen tend to be, they're not very reliable in terms of colors. So when I have a file, someone's file, I have to look at it and then figure out on what they were seeing and their vision, right? And I have to try to get as close to that as possible.
So, Tommy, I'm going to ask you $1 million question. Why Ilford gallery paper? Why do you print on Ilford gallery?
It's a good question. They have a really good range of papers, and they've been quite reliable as well. And they're quite consistent in terms of one paper to the other and the way that you can make the colors appear. I find like some of the brands, like some papers will be like super like vivid colors, like really bright, and then you put it on the same brand, different paper, and it'll be really like faded, it'll have faded colors, right? And even though you try to do like the best possible profile for it, it might not it's just not gonna match. But with Ilford, I find that they're really, really consistent throughout the range. And that is really attractive to me. It makes my life a bit easier. But that's one of the reasons. And the quality is great.
And you're printing exclusively on Ilford paper now, Tommy, is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, I am.
Great. Love to hear it. Now, the question people ask most in regards to paper and Ilford paper, what is your personal favorite paper? And what customers do you have that like certain types of paper?
Look, the most popular paper would be the Ilford Smooth Cotton Rag 310 GSM. Definitely the most popular, right? I'm a big fan of the fiberglass, the Ilford fiberglass, which I believe is 310 GSM. It's a shiny paper, and it's usually one of those things you have to be careful with shiny papers, because when you put a piece on a wall, you kind of want to see the entire piece in one go. However, the fiberglass has this beautiful like texture and this beautiful like slight shine that just bounces off that little texture, and it's a very vivid paper. It's got beautiful colors. It's very punchy, and that's what glossy papers tend to do. They do punch out the colors, right? It's because of the way that the light reflects off them. My other favorite is the Ilford textured silk, which is 270 GSM, but I love the consistency of it. I love the texture of it. It's not too crass. It's not too pronounced, and it feels beautiful to the touch. Not that you should be touching a print, right? Because they're archival, and obviously,
Yeah.
well, skin, contains
The oils,
oils,
same with film,
and
yeah.
oils
Gotta use
contain
the gloves.
acid.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there you
You
go.
gotta use the
Right there.
gloves.
So yeah, the Ilford texture seal is beautiful. Like I absolutely love printing on it. Like I have full confidence every time I put a print out on it.
And when people are printing shots that have been taken on analog film, they tend to gravitate towards the fiber-based paper. Is that right?
Yeah, look, both the fiberglass and the texture silk work very well with analog or film-based photography. And I think it's because, look, film usually has a bit of grain. It's always a beautiful grain as opposed to, the pixel count that you get on digital photography. And that grain translates really well with a slight texture like the textured silk and the fiberglass.
So, Josie, you've had the chance to use the new Ilford film, the Ilford Color Vintage.
Yes, I had a chance to do that, yeah.
What are your thoughts after shooting a couple of rolls of this film?
I actually really like it. My style of shooting, I always overexpose slightly because film loves light anyway. So the first roll with the photo shoot I did with Akira that got printed as well, I didn't end up using the exposure compensation to do that on the Pentax. So I just shot at box speed. And it could probably use just a little bit more light, but I think if you were looking for the dramatic moody effects straight out of camera and with it at box speed, it's perfect for that. I love the tones of it. It's definitely got that sort of nostalgic vibe that you don't get from other film.
Yeah.
And the developing process and scanning was pretty straightforward, just like any other film. I do normally scan with borders, and I found that on the Ilford Color Vintage, it's not black borders, they're purple, which is really interesting to me. Whereas other film have like pretty strong black borders, and it's quite noticeable. So if you like that kind of look and you like it having, you can see the grain on the borders too, which is really cool. If you like that look, you can absolutely scan them with borders. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to tell when they're cropped in like that. And the base of the film is different from normal film as well. So when you're developing it and you pull it out and it's green, don't panic. It's meant to look that way. And yeah, it just did a really beautiful job. Was really impressed with how it handled in the Pentax 17 as well.
After you printed, you sent the images to Tommy.
Yeah.
Was there any touch-ups you did from that point, Tommy?
On these files, not too much. Probably a few adjustments in terms of brightness. So like toning down the brightness on one of them. I think there was a bit of contrast on another file, but it's been pretty consistent. Like it's good. Like it's sometimes you see some files and you're just like, wow, that's way off.
Yeah.
But these are really good. Yeah. And so these were actually printed on the Ilford textured silk, and the texture again, like works really beautifully.
Yeah, it looks so good on
the grain of the film.
So we've got some model shots there, some car shots. Can we have a look at the images?
Oh yeah, of course. This one was shot on the Ilford.
Yeah, that one was shot on the Ilford. And the lighting scenario, we use Xeon lighting, which is fantastic lighting for continuous light on film. It renders really accurately as well, and you don't really have to adjust too much. And yeah, it's just Akira did such an incredible job on that photo shoot.
Yeah, so you can see there's a bit of texture on this one. Cool. And this one here, which you're talking about borders.
Yeah, that's Kodak Gold. So that's what your standard consumer film, and they have the black borders with the little gold tones for the numbers and whatnot.
Yeah, and that was printed on the same paper as well, the Ilford textured silk. Again, beautiful texture and very fine grain on this one.
I just have to say, Tommy, I'm absolutely amazed that the Pentax 17 can produce such high quality results in A3 size. That is mind blowing.
Yeah, it is beautiful, isn't it? It's very sharp as well. It's you're getting gorgeous colors and yeah, it's beautiful.
I think that was like the misconception a lot of people had about the Pentax 17, that it being half frame, you're going to lose that resolution, but you don't. And it's such a gorgeous camera with such a sharp lens as well that you can do the same things as an SLR. Yes, it's not manual and you don't have those fine adjustments, but there are enough program modes and like the exposure compensation on there, and you can adjust the ISO if you want, if you know what you're doing, to sort of get around those things and shoot it almost the same as an SLR. So you can get fantastic results in all sorts of scenarios, all sorts of lighting, and produce professional results, really.
Not just the perfect analog camera for Instagram, also highly capable to produce large-scale, high-quality prints.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, Tommy, the Ilford paper you chose to print those Pentax 17 images was
The Ilford textured silk.
the Ilford textured silk. And was there a reason why you chose that particular paper?
Yeah, the grain of it, the texture of the paper works really well with the grain of the film. It's a very fine texture. It's actually quite hard to see in certain lights, but when you have it on the wall and you get the sunlight, just coming from one side, that's when it really like pops out, and it gels really nicely with the grain of the films. Yeah,
Textured silk paper for grainy film shots.
that's right.
So I'm going to throw out a big question to the both of you, and that is, why print? Why print your images?
Well, you've gone to all that work. Regardless of if you send it to a lab or not, the process of film is so much more involved, and you're kind of taking ownership of your art. So why just let it sit on the computer? Like, you might as well print it and put it in an album or share it with friends. And to see it in person is so much, like, it's incredible to actually see it and like be able to hold it and look at the colors and see how it's been interpreted and all that sort of stuff. And it's a different feeling than just having a digital file that you post online. And I just prefer printing. I really love it. It's something I need to do more of because I have like so many photos. I need to do something with them rather than they just like hide away and no one sees them. And even if it's just for me, it's a celebration of it, and it's tangible. Like, it's there, it's real, and it's not just a file somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, look, from a printer's point of view, obviously I'm always going to be pushing for printing. It depends on the clients. A lot of my clients obviously sell prints right now for the walls of their clients, right? So there's that. So, I mean, you still want to decorate your house. You still want to make it your own personal space, right? And you still need those prints on the walls, like that artwork, right? That you would provide. But there's also, those clients, and it's more about having a keepsake, like we used to have photo books, right? When I was a kid, like, my parents used to make all these massive books with all those like printed 4x6 prints. Where that was, what year, etc., who was I with?
Scrapbooks full of family
that's
memories.
right. And that was beautiful, and you don't really have these anymore. And so obviously there's always that sort of, I want to push for that. I want people to have memories. If it's on your computer, no one sees it. You never see it, right? And what's going to happen to your computer? Your computer's going to last like, 5-10 years, and then it's going to add up in the bin, and then where are the files? Like, I mean, these days, you've got cloud, but no one's going to look at them, right? But having those books, I mean, I have hand-me-down books from like my grandparents, right? And this is beautiful. So those are memories. So that's what I'm saying, like different clients, different reasons why, but there's also this theme that like, you always looking at like photos on like Instagram, like on your phone, on computer or whatever, but it's not, and that's the problem with Instagram. Like, a photo is only worth like a nanosecond, right? But when it's printed, that's it. It's going to last 100 years. That's pretty much the quality of the paper and the ink. The papers, the prints are going to last 100 years, right? So as long as you protect it properly.
Archival life of 100 years.
Yeah, you have it in a frame, on a wall. Try to keep it away from the sunlight. You should be fine.
And then that can be passed on down to other generations as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
And like, for example, my grandfather's film photos, like I still have his film negatives and I was able to scan them. And if he didn't keep those, then I wouldn't have any photos. So there's that side of things too. Like, even the film can be archived and can be good 50 years down the track if
Yeah.
you know what you're doing with it. And then you can go ahead and print those photos out that no one's ever seen from like 1953
Yeah,
and then hand them around to family. And that's such a special thing.
And that's the interesting thing as well that I'm saying. Like, quite a few of my clients were shooting analog films, right, back in the 90s, 80s, 90s. And so they have a massive archive
Oh, yeah. I
of all
can
those
imagine.
films, right?
Yeah.
And they're currently just going through it and just
yeah.
digitizing everything. But obviously you want to get the best possible
Yeah.
like result you want, so you need to like scan those like super high quality.
Yeah, of course.
And I think the way you're doing is fantastic. Like,
Yeah,
that's
thank you.
very good. Yeah.
And there's like a lot of restoration involved in that too, because some of them are quite old and damaged, and then you have to go through that whole process.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different ball game. But
That's a lifetime
yeah,
of
it's a
Yeah.
lot of work and a
Yeah.
lot of training to kind of get to that point to be able to like fix a photo for a family, and that's such a special feeling too, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And then to be able to print from that. Oh, stunning.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed.
Josie, Tommy, I'm going to throw this out to you. What is next on the cards for you guys?
I'm working on like a personal poetry and photo book because I've got so many, like 14,000 film photos at the moment, and I have to do something with them. So I'd like to do a personal project, and even I'm in a few art galleries as well. So I've started printing my work and applying for galleries and kind of getting it out there. So that's what I'm aiming to do with my work, and just kind of keep busy. I'm in the car scene a lot. I do a lot more portrait shoots. Like I've got one tomorrow that I'm doing, and I'll be taking the Pentax 17 there as well, and just slowly making my way through things.
And you're going to feature in the Pentax 17 gallery.
Yes, I am. I'm really excited about that. I believe I entered a bunch of car shots, and that was just at like a local cars meet near my house, and the photos just turned out beautifully.
Cars on film, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, I love it. It's so much fun.
So there's a lot of demand for people that want to have images shot on analog now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like it's becoming more and more popular, I think. A lot of people are chasing that nostalgic feeling, and also the aesthetic that only film can give you, because you can try to edit it digitally, but it's not quite the same. And I have so many digital photographers now coming to me being like, can you teach me how to shoot film? I want to be able to like provide this for my clients. I want to be able to shoot at a wedding on film. I want to be able to do maternity on film and all that sort of stuff. So people are kind of going back to like the nostalgia, like, oh, my mum used to shoot film in the 90s. I loved it so much. And then wanting to chase that sort of memory and how unique it is as well, because it's not like you can take the photo and look at it. You have to just trust that it's going to turn out, and trust in yourself in the process too. And I think you put a lot more of yourself into it. And then that's such a beautiful thing to gift someone, of like, this is like a little bit of yourself is in your artwork, and then you're creating something for someone that's so unique that can't be replicated. It's really special.
I like that. Trust the process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Tommy, what's next on the cards for you?
A few exhibitions happening, so I'll be working on that, and that's always pretty exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, always hard
I can't
work.
really talk too much about it. But
So I also want to ask you, Tommy, you have some of the most high profile and top artists in the country that use you to print their works, that trust you to print their artwork. How did you develop such a high caliber customer base?
Look, I work a lot from it's word of mouth. All right. So it's just a matter of doing the right thing by people, first of all.
Yeah.
Having a good eye, and cultivating that trust with one and then the other, and you just keep on going like that. Look, my clients, that they trust me to do the right thing by them, and they trust the colors that I'm going to give them on print, and that's obviously one of the most important things. But also they not just that, but I have a lot of their files on my servers, and they trust me not to give that out, right? So there's
A high level of trust there.
That's right. Yeah.
And does a customer have much input into determining which paper you use, or are they happy to leave that choice up to you?
Oh yeah, no, we talk about all these first. Like that's initially when I meet someone, I'll always talk about different papers and have a look at their work and advise them on what's going to be best for them, and then we'll take it from there. My advice with someone who's selling prints is to usually stick to the same type of paper throughout their time, or at least keeping it the same within a body of work. But there's, I usually do a full consultation, and we talk about everything and how, proceed and how to do, the different sizes, whether you do borders, no borders, where are you going to sign, are you going to do edition numbers, etc. So there's a bit of conversation before you actually start even looking at the files properly for color adjustments and all that. And then, the idea is like, once all that is established, you do tests, right? So you usually what I recommend is like a contact sheet, big piece of paper with a whole heap of like photos, and then they can like see what the colors are going to like turn out as, right? And that's usually a good idea because they can look at it and go, oh, okay, that's pretty vibrant, or oh, that's really bang on target, and it's usually a good process to do. Especially if they're working on a monitor that's not calibrated.
Like me, sorry.
That's okay. Yeah.
Guys, thanks for coming on the vodcast today.
Thank you for having me.
My
and
pleasure.
sharing such intimate details about your work and your future plans. So today we've been talking about one of the hottest topics in the photographic world, and that is shooting on analog now and film shooting. So thanks for coming in and sharing your insights to film shooting, but not just film shooting, also printing and the printing process to that, which is equally as interesting topic. So guys, let's just leave on the note, it's time for film.
It's time for film.
It's time for film.
And also it's time for printing.
Yes, it is time for printing. Print your film.
Always.
Print your film photos. Do it.